What's going on, everyone? Travis here with Mineral Mentor. Tonight, we have an awesome interview with the amazing Dr. Wallach. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel so you can get the interviews every single week. And if you're interested in learning more about the products, one-on-one coaching, or just being a part of Longevity Nation, please reach out in whatever way you see down in the comments that works best for you. We love you guys. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next week. Peace. Dr. Wallach, thank you for being here. If you're on Instagram, YouTube, wherever you're watching, we appreciate you being here as well. Dr. Wallach, you are one of a kind, the hero of the world, in my opinion, and we love having you here. So we're going to let you talk about whatever you want to share today. I know you have some really cool stuff you've been talking about. So go ahead and take it away, and we're happy to have you.
Okay, well, thank you, Travis, for you and your whole team. Appreciate that. And yeah, everything's spiking in like crazy from this COVID thing. Florida on this last Friday had 5,000 new cases. On Sunday, they had 15,000 new cases. That surpasses New York, which had a record of 12,000 new cases a year ago. So they beat that. And today they had another 5,000. So Florida in 4 days, I missed a day there, but at minimum, they've got 25,000 new cases. California went up 2,800 yesterday. I haven't seen their numbers yet for today. And everybody's spiking like crazy. And that's because the medical system has failed us. They have depended totally on the vaccines to solve the problem. It's like waxing your car and saying, I don't know why the engine's burning up. Well, did you check your oil? No, I waxed the car. Okay, well, that's what they're doing with all these vaccinations. Vaccines don't kill viruses, bacteria, fungus, or yeast. They just notify the body of bad DNA and RNA. So when the bug shows up, your body knows what to attack. And you need three pieces. Number one, you need the raw materials for your bone marrows to make white blood cells, antibodies, red blood cells, and platelets to go kill and eat the viruses. And you also need to stay away from gluten so your villi and your intestine are still good so you can absorb the nutrition to make all these things you need for your defense. And they have totally forgotten that piece. And I just want to point to the Pope here. Pope Francis, 84 years old. He had diverticulitis diagnosed for 20-something years. They finally took out half his colon when he was having really bad trouble. And they didn't do anything for his small intestine. I guarantee you, I wager you a steak dinner anywhere in the world, they didn't tell him to get off of gluten, which is all Italians eat, is gluten. And then he has had sciatica so bad, low back and hips and knees, that he had to cancel several big events because he couldn't stand up or walk. And so that's all a nutritional deficiency, I'm sure, partly secondary to the gluten issues in his intestines. And so the medical system has failed badly here, okay, because their whole thing is they bet everything. They bet the ranch on the vaccination, okay? Bad choice. Well, right now in America, every state has diagnosed the Delta variant, which showed up in India. And right now, India is spiking. They have 30,944,893 infections, 411,439 dead. They're just 200,000 short dead of us now. Back in 2019, or let me say back that up, 1919, in the Spanish flu, they had 20 million deaths in 6 months. They had 110 million infections in 6 months from the Spanish flu. And so I think they may be headed that direction now. So we shall see, we hope, and keep our fingers crossed that that's not happening. Then we need to compare Peru and Vietnam. Peru and Vietnam are kind of interesting. Vietnam has 97 million people, and Peru has 32 million people. So Peru has about 30% of the Vietnam population. And Peru has this Lambda variant, which is 5 times more deadly than the Delta variant, COVID, and I know 4 or 5 times more infectious. It's called C37. And the numbers are, let's see here, the newest numbers in Vietnam are, let's get it out here, 125 dead, 125 dead, and 30, let's see here, trying to think, 17, they have, 32,366 infections. That's Vietnam. Now, when you look at Peru, with 1/3 the population, they have 194,387 dead. That's much more than 125 dead, okay? And of course, they only have 17,000 infections, or actually 35,000 infections versus 2 million infections. And so what's going on here? Well, Peru, because of the Spanish background and European background, Germans, Americans, French, Spanish, English, they learned how to eat wheat, barley, rye, oats. Their intestines are dead. They don't supplement. And so that's why they have such a high rate. In Vietnam, they're living like Asians. They don't eat gluten primarily. I think probably the 125 that are dead may have been Vietnamese that are working for US Navy bases and eating Navy food. I would guess that, okay? And then let's look at another thing we need to look at here. Let's look at the Philippines. Let's look at the Philippines versus, again, Vietnam. The Philippines, I think we didn't actually talk about the Philippines yet, so let's talk about the Philippines. They have 100 million people. Vietnam has 97 million, very close. And the Philippines have, as of this morning, 22,312 dead, and they have 1,478,000 infections. Okay, and again, Vietnam has 32,600 and something infections and 125 dead. Huge difference. Well, again, the Philippines, we have Navy bases there. We have air base. I used to go there all the time when I was in the Air Force. And I guarantee you the people who are dying and getting infected are the ones who are working with either American military or American entertainment, movies, restaurants, that sort of stuff, hotels, and they're eating like Americans. And so that's why they're in trouble. Another one, very interesting, is Nigeria, okay, versus Brazil. Nigeria versus Brazil. They both have about 208 million people. But let's see here, Nigeria has 2,122 dead. Brazil has 530,344 dead. Nigeria has 169,000 infections. Brazil has 19 million infections. What's going on? Well, again, Brazil was introduced by the UK and Germany and France and Spain. We're talking 400 years ago. And they're eating like Europeans, gluten, 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 gluten. Whereas the Nigerians, they live on the west coast of Africa and they're eating like Asians. They live on rice and maize and beans and squash and seaweed. They're getting all these minerals from the seaweed. It's kind of like our Fucoid Z stuff and our Ocean's Gold. And so that's going on. And what I want people to do is engage the Scouts. The Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, they're the people who actually saved America after the Second World War. All the young people that were either fighters or stayed in Europe and Asia and the Pacific after the war to kind of rebuild them, who is here in America, the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. And of course, in Boy Scouts, they have 135 merit badges. The Girl Scouts have over 200, what they call pins. These pins have about the same weight as these merit badges. When I graduated high school at age 18, I was an Eagle Scout, Order of the Arrow, which is a leadership award. I had 32 merit badges, and they covered a lot of things. Everything from sports, swimming, football, that kind of stuff, weightlifting, but also car mechanics, farming, cooking, nutrition. And so I had a university, the equivalent of a university 4-year degree when I graduated high school, because I was a Boy Scout doing all these things. And we were working, for 10 years in houses had people who were disabled and veterans who were disabled and injured and so forth, doing their gardens, doing their laundry, washing their backs, all that kind of stuff that Scouts do. And Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts right now are needed very badly. And of course, we need them to get every kid in America and every kid in the world with our Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, Kids Toddy, Cal Toddy, Kids Sprinkles, EFAs, Z Radical, or Fucoid Z or both, like I do, and Rebound or Sports Drink with 100 nutrients in it. So they're well. And people say, well, what are they going to get for all this time they're investing in all these other people? Well, they will get an income stream. They get paid for their activity. We'll pay them. Also, they'll get a car bonus. And so they'll be able to get a car out of the deal as well as get money for their college. And the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, they're usually associated with churches and schools and volunteer organizations like volunteer fire departments and things like that. And so they have really great supervision. And of course, this is a way for them to make extra money, get their cars, and they get all these merit badges doing all these tasks that are necessary to save America now. And so I really, really want to get the Scouts involved, both the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts. And they don't have to be 16 years old to get to be a Cub Scout or a Brownie. They can be 6, 8 years old and be in kindergarten and be Brownies and Cub Scouts. That's where I started. And so I want them to start as early as possible. And again, every kid in America, we can actually add 25 to 50 healthy years to their life and stop all this death and injury from the COVID with the Kids Toddy, Cal Toddy, Kids Sprinkles, EFAs, Rebound or Sports Drink, and of course, our Z Radical and the Fucoid Z. Now, here's the deal. They're going to have to use our hand sanitizer, our colloidal silver to protect themselves. They're going to have to use mask, all right? And it doesn't hurt to throw in our Oxybody. They can throw in the Killer Biotic, take 3 of those twice a day, along with our colloidal silver 4 times a day to help ward off bugs, including viruses, bacteria, fungus, and yeast. We can add 25 to 50 healthy years of their life, give them an income stream, which they can bank, and also get them a car, which, they may have to get the title shared with a parent or a grandparent or an older brother and sister kind of stuff if they're only 8 years old. But they're going to be rewarded for helping America get back on its feet. So I can't think of a better group than the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. Now, here we go. The average American human life expectancy, regardless of race, all around the world is 155. Our average lifespan up until about a month ago was listed as 79. And then about a month ago, our government came out and said, oh, because of the COVID thing, there's so many people dying at a younger age that we're dying now at 75. So up until a month ago, we were leaving 76 years of our longevity, 155, on the table. 76 years you missed with your kids and grandkids and hunting and playing golf and all the stuff you like to do. Now we're 80 years we're leaving on the table. Terrible. Now, medical doctors in the emergency room, let's see here, the CDC came out about a year ago now and said the average lifespan of medical doctors in the emergency room is 57. Subtract that from 155, you get 98 years they're leaving on the table. Doctors are not the people to ask about longevity. They're the last people you want to talk to when you talk about longevity. Now, you get run over by a truck or you're bleeding internally, you got to go to the emergency room. But you don't want to talk to doctors about longevity. Our Black population in America, their average lifespan, according to the CDC, is 72 years. Subtract that from 155, you're leaving 83 years on the table. Same thing with Latinos, 81.8 years is their average lifespan. They're leaving 73.2 years on the table. The longest lived peoples on Earth are the Hunzas from Hunzakut, which is between Pakistan and China near the Giltar Glacier. Their average lifespan is 120. Now, if you just take that raw, they leave 35 years on the table, but their longest lived peoples, their supercentenarians, lived to be in their 160s and 180s. And there's one supposed to have lived to be 265. And this was documented by a guy by the name of James Hilton, who is a vicious investigative reporter for the New York Times, the London Times. And he checked it out and he says, it's a true story. I checked it all out. This guy's true. And he was selling herbs to kind of live a long time. But James Hilton also wrote the book, Lost Horizon, which became in 1929, which became a 1933 movie. And it talked about all these long-lived peoples in the world. Everybody said, oh yeah, that's a myth. No, it's absolutely true, but you have to work at it. You have to give up all the bad stuff. Now, New Zealand, okay, let's look at New Zealand with just short of 5,000 people. New Zealand with 5,000 people, and Louisiana, our state of Louisiana with 5,000 people. New Zealand has 26 dead, and our people in Louisiana have 10,600 dead. New Zealand has 2,000 infections, and Louisiana has 31,000 infections. So what's the huge difference here? Well, in Louisiana, they have a very large portion of their population who are indigenous peoples, and they are Black and Latinos, and they live on something called gluten, wheat, barley, rye, and oats. They drink it, they eat it, and as a result, their intestines are dead. They can't absorb nutrition, and they tend not to be a culture that supplements. So their death count right now is 10,648. Their infections for COVID in Louisiana is 475, 354. Whereas New Zealand, with the same population, okay, is 26 dead and 2,700 infections. It's totally diet, because the indigenous peoples in New Zealand eat like Asians. They live on rice and maize and beans and squash and seaweed, and that's the difference. Very, very important here. Now again, kids toddy, Cal toddy, kids sprinkles, EFAs. Don't forget the rebounder sports drink with 100 nutrients in it, and you'll add 25 to 50 healthy years to your life, and you'll add 25 to 50 healthy years to your kids' lives. You'll save yourselves an enormous amount of unnecessary misery. All right. And it's one of those things where this is in your control. You don't have to ask a doctor if you can do these things. These are things you can do. And it's quite, which I say, quite a respectable thing to do, is to live 25 to 50 years longer and pass this information on to your family and your kids and grandkids and great-grandkids and cousins and nieces and nephews. It has very little to do with the vaccinations. The vaccinations, and because the medical system has banked everything. They banked your life. They banked the health of the country on vaccinations, and they failed. They picked poorly, okay? As they said in Indiana Jones, okay, they chose poorly. When some of these people chose these very expensive chalices, they're supposed to find the chalice of Jesus. They all these very expensive chalices, and they died drinking wine from it. And Indiana Jones says they chose poorly, and he took this little wooden chalice, and you know, that's Jesus was a carpenter, sort of thing. So these doctors have chosen poorly, and everybody in America and everybody in the world is paying the price. So I urge everybody to kind of take back your control over your health. I've been vaccinated because I travel on airplanes and they won't let me on the airplane without proof of vaccination. So I got vaccinated for that. But I'm 82 years old and I didn't have COVID, although I've been out running around all over the place, because I've been taking my colloidal silver for 25 years, 2 droppers full under my tongue, a half hour before each meal and half hour before bed, 4 times a day. I've been gluten-free for 74 years. I've been on the 90 essential nutrients for 74 years. I've been using the hand sanitizer like crazy. I also wear a mask when I go out of the house. It's one of those things where you have to make sure that you are, and I know I have one here to show you guys. I'll find it. But at any rate, it's one of those things where you have to appreciate that wearing a mask is important. Distance yourself. Wash your hands. Use the hand sanitizer. You have to maintain yourself just like you maintain your car. You check your antifreeze in the radiator. You check your oil. You check the air in your tires. You don't just wash your car and wax your car. You do all this sort of checking, double checking, so forth, to make sure that everything is going well, right? And so you need to do the same thing for yourself as you're doing for your car. And you will be glad you did, because you'll add many, many healthy years to your life if you do that. And it's one of those things that is unimpeachable, okay? This is something that you can't deny the records. You cannot deny the data. It is unimpeachable stuff. And so I urge you to do these things. and add 25 to 50 healthy years to your life, because we need people who are still going to be here. The people who are just running around and listening to doctors and, okay, I can take my mask off now because some politician says I can take my mask off. I don't have to wash my hands anymore. I'm going to go to all these restaurants, which I'm sure they're doing in the beaches like they're doing in Florida and California. That's why they're spiking like crazy. And so we have all these new variants now, and even the vaccines, unless you are supplementing with the 90 essential nutrients and staying away from the bad stuff, your body is not able to respond to the vaccinations. Remember, vaccinations do not kill viruses, bacteria, or fungus and yeast. They just alert your body to the bad DNA and RNA so you can recognize the bad guy comes along. And so, again, I urge you to do everything you can. And this is, what should I say, available in the book Rare Earth Spin Cures. It's available in the book Hell's Kitchen and the CD Hell's Kitchen. It's available in the book Black Gene Lies and the CD Black Gene Lies. And in the book Epigenetics and the CD Epigenetics, because there are no genetically transmitted diseases. There are no diseases that are genetically transmitted. There are no diseases that are birth defects that are genetically transmitted. And so you have to make sure that everybody who's in the childbearing years, both boys and girls, are taking the 90 essential nutrients for at least a year before they get pregnant. Every time there's a birth defect, I point my finger at I said, I want to know who your OB/GYN was. Did he tell you to be on birth control? He said, no. I went on birth control myself. Okay, good. Now, did he tell you to be on the 90 essential nutrients? No, I'm on birth control. I don't need to worry about it. Well, the day you forgot to take your birth control pills, right, or didn't use condoms or whatever, and you had sex, you got pregnant, how'd that work for your baby? Well, the baby had cleft palates and had a heart defect and had spina bifida, had 3 major birth defects. And the doctor said, oh, that's, immune deficiency in your baby. No, it was the OB/GYN didn't insist that the mother take these prenatal vitamins every day, whether she's having sex or not, whether she's on birth control or not, so that if a baby does occur, they'll be born normal. See, we don't have health insurance for animals. And so the farmer's got to pay for everything. It's much cheaper to pay for some vitamins and minerals than it is to pay for a calf that has cleft palate and spina bifida and a heart defect. Okay, if you've fed that cow for that pregnancy, and now you got to kill and eat that calf because it's got all these diseases, you can't sell it, well, there you go. And so we learned a long time ago that if we give our animals all these nutrients and keep them away from the bad foods, that the farming business will be very profitable. But if you don't pay attention to the details, you'll go bankrupt very quickly because everything will go wrong. So I again urge you to get a hold of the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. Remember, they're attached to churches and schools and volunteer organizations, so they're easy to find. You can go to your county and ask, how many troops or scouts, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are in your county. Now, my troop, 495, was attached to the high school in University City, Missouri, a little suburb of St. Louis. And I, as soon as I could be a scout, which I was, I think I was 11, 12 years old, I became a scout. Before that, I was a Cub Scout. And doing all these things after 8 years old, when the Second World War was over, I'm doing all this volunteer stuff in homes and nursing homes and fire stations and things to help out. And so, like I say, I had a college degree in effect by the time I graduated high school when I was 18 years old because of scouting. So I really appreciate the scouts, and they're going to help us get the information out there. They're going to help us get the products out there. They're going to help us teach people what to do to save themselves and save their communities, because the medical system and the politicians have failed us terribly. Over to you.
Wow, wow, wow. Just incredible stuff. I'm about to start looking up all these Boy Scout troops, Girl Scout troops here in San Antonio so we can get that ball rolling out here, because I know I'm one of the only ones out here right now. But that's just awesome. I really appreciate what you say about the vaccines and us just really relying on it, and not us as in you and me, but us as a nation, us as a global.
Yeah, it's only one tiny piece. It's like 10% of your immune system is the vaccination. Everything else is what you eat, what you don't eat. And everything else has to do with taking care of yourself. Hand sanitizers, killer biotic, that kind of stuff. Colloidal silver.
100% agree with you there, Doc. I want to ask, there's something that came into the news just recently about the J&J vaccine causing Guillian-Barre.
Yeah, Guillain-Barre syndrome. Guillain-Barre syndrome.
Do you know anything about that at this point?
Well, Guillain-Barre syndrome is a birth defect. Okay, and it has to do with damage to the brain. And so, is that really true that it has to do with that vaccination, or is it the kid's diet? And I would like to do a hair analysis on those kids and see if it was really a diet or the vaccination. It could be both, or it could be one or the other. But certainly Guillain-Barre syndrome is a totally preventable disease, like all birth defects. None of them are genetic, none of them are autoimmune. They're all nutritional deficiencies. And of course, if you're eating gluten and you can't absorb nutrients, even if you're supplementing. But I really, I just get breathless when I think about the position that OBGYNs are in. They need to be very, what should I say, forward to make sure that all of these young couples are taking the 90 essential nutrients and staying away from gluten, and we will end all birth defects. Now, that's why I'm, along with Bruce Lipton, considered one of the two fathers of the science of epigenetics, which has replaced genetics. There are no genetic diseases. There are no genetically transmitted birth defects. I'm the guy that got rid of cystic fibrosis. I'm the guy that got rid of muscular dystrophy, gave the information to Jerry Lewis. The Muscular Dystrophy Association fired Jerry Lewis and shut off the telethon. You haven't heard about them since 2011, okay, because they're dead. Jerry Lewis died 2 years after they fired him. What a terrible thing to do. He raised $2 billion for them to find the cure. When he brought them my paper on it, okay, and he brought them the cure because we were treating all these kids in Utah and Indiana and Eastern Canada, and we had reversed muscular dystrophy in all these kids. And he took them to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. They fired him and shut off the telethon. You haven't heard anything about the Muscular Dystrophy Association since 2011 as a result. And then, of course, as a side effect, April 16, 2013, with Jonathan Emord, our great attorney, he won our 12th federal case in federal court, forcing the manufacturers of baby formulas, Enfamil, Similac, to put these nutrients in the baby formulas. I had tried for 25 years by arguing with the manufacturers and arguing with the doctors. They said, no, these nutrients are poisonous. You can't put them in there. Well, Dr. Milan and I went to China. We did 1,700 autopsies on kids under the age of 10. 35% had cystic fibrosis, 100% had muscular dystrophy, and over 100 of them under the age of 1 year would have been diagnosed as sudden death syndrome here. We used that as the evidence to give the federal judges. They couldn't deny the results of 1,700 autopsies, so they ruled in our favor. And immediately we went after those companies. We didn't let them decide when they were going to do it. So they're going to do it now. We're going to sue you personally. And so they did it immediately, put it in their formulas because the judge ruled they had to go in there. A year and a half later, big headlines in the Charlotte Observer newspaper, kind of like the New York Times for New York. We don't know why, but sudden death syndrome has vanished in the state of North Carolina. Then 3 months later, we don't know why, but sudden death syndrome has vanished in the state of Missouri. Then 3 months later, we don't know why, but sudden death syndrome diagnoses have dropped by 85 to 95% in the world. Well, that's because we put those nutrients in there. 98% of those babies dying of sudden death syndrome died in the crib. So I made them change the name to crib death. Mothers weren't laying on them. The other 2% were dying of the same thing, but they were in bed with their mothers. So the doctors blamed the mothers. So the doctors wouldn't have to say, I don't know. Okay. But they all died of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart disease. They all died of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy disease, a deficiency of a single nutrient. Okay. And so it's one of those things where I eliminated 3 terrible childhood diseases, 2 of which were thought to be genetic. The third one was supposed to be thought by the mothers sleeping on the babies. None of their beliefs were correct. And in just a couple of weeks doing a research project and getting this all published and going after these people in the courts for a year, we eliminated 3 diseases. Over 10, 12 years ago, the average number of sudden death syndrome deaths per 300 normal babies was 1 per 300. Today, it's 1 per 3,000. Now, that's a huge improvement. Now, we could eliminate it totally, but mothers are still giving babies milk from cartons, but not giving them any vitamins, minerals added to it. they're still breastfeeding babies, but they're not taking any vitamins and minerals. And so they're missing that nutrient. And so these babies, those few that are still dying, that 1 in 3,000, if mothers would take their 90 essential nutrients and stay away from gluten, if they would not feed them just milk, use our kids' toddy, that's why I'm pushing kids' toddy so hard, we will eliminate all of these remaining sediment death syndromes. I'm just breathless to be involved in that. Just think about it. One guy, research projects, defied everything that the medical system in the world believed. That cystic fibrosis, I found the first non-human case of cystic fibrosis in a monkey at the Yerkes Primate Center in Atlanta, Georgia. I was working for NASA, and I found the first one. I sent slides. I didn't tell them it was from a monkey, but I sent slides about 10 different medical schools. I said, I think this is cystic fibrosis. What do you think of the pancreas and the livers? They said, well, this is a classic example of cystic fibrosis. Oh man, I had it. I got permission to do biopsies in the other 24 baby monkeys there that had 24 other mothers and dads. None of them were related because of different mothers and dads. And they all had cystic fibrosis. So I wrote it up. I was going to give it to a big event with the government, national university, okay? And they fired me. They fired me when I discovered the cause, prevention, and cure for cystic fibrosis. They fired me. Well, when I gave Jerry Lewis the cause, prevention, and cure for muscular dystrophy, the Muscular Dystrophy Association, after he had raised $2 billion for them, they fired Jerry Lewis. That's why I haven't heard about them since 2011. No more telethon, no more Jerry Lewis, no more Muscular Dystrophy Association. Really, really tragic. Well, we're on the right track now, and I can't thank you enough for letting me share these stories because we can save so many people.
We really, really can. And it is tragic. And your story, Jerry Lewis's story, is just prime example of the medical control that they're not trying to heal people. There's too much money in the insurance and the medication and all of that. So it's a sad, sad feat that you, the way you felt when you got rid of SIDS and all of that must be incredible, because just being able to work with you, I feel like it's all of our accomplishments in a way that we can share this with the mothers and the families of the future generations.
Well, thank you so much, Travis. And of course, Steve and I did a Zoom thing for Longevity, and also for the Cheryl Morley and Paul Croto, where they're doing these training for these certified holistic coaches, health coaches. And they asked Steve, when he knew that I knew about the cystic fibrosis thing, he said, well, I was just a kid, but he was telling me about it. I was just 12 years old, but he was telling me about it. And I said, well, how come, you're not getting the Nobel Prize for it? I said, well, because medical doctors have their beliefs, and it's gonna be 100 years. I'll be dead 100 years before somebody goes back in the files and finds all this stuff. Oh, well, Wallach was saying that 100 years ago. And so Steve told that story where he was asking me why, and I told him it's going to take 100 years for the world to know it. Well, now because of emails and Zooms and CDs and DVDs, it's not going to take 100 years because we're making sure the world knows about this. Because just think about it. There's not one single birth defect that's genetic. There's not one single disease out there that's genetic. There's not one single disease out there that's autoimmune. And if we can get to the Pope through the Vatican or directly to the Pope with our information, we'll save the Pope. But if he keeps depending on the doctors and their surgeries and their medications for symptoms, he's 84 years old now. I'm very nervous about what's going to happen to the Pope in the next couple of months.
Well, hopefully this will get into the ether, onto the internet. I know us on Mineral Mentor, we have literally people across the world that we interact with. So hopefully there's someone over there that we can start to work with and get that out there. I will circle back really quick because you said, what you're saying will come through in 100 years. And I know Dr. Glidden always says medicine progresses one death at a time, right? So hopefully yours isn't one of those that it takes to push this through, but that's why we have an army of people doing this. So I'll move on to questions now. I have one for you, and then we're going to move to Devin. Devin's got a ton from the chat today, which is awesome. So my question is about sciatica. I've heard you talk about sciatica in the past, but I'd love to get a breakdown not for anyone specific, but just dealing with
Sure.
sciatica in general?
Okay, well, sciatica is one of these musculoskeletal degenerative diseases caused by gluten and nutritional deficiencies. The sciatic nerves are formed in the lumbar part of the spinal cord, in the lower back. You hear people say, oh yeah, I got a low back problem. Well, that's because they have degenerative disc disease. The discs are shrinking, the vertebrae getting closer together, and they're smashing the roots of those sciatic nerves. And those sciatic nerves go to the bladder. They go to the hips and the knees and the feet and the toes. They get hammer toes and tingling and numbness. And the doctors say, well, yeah, we got to give you a hip replacement. We got to give you a knee replacement. Let's see here. Oh, we got to do some surgery. We got to take your prostate out because you're having trouble with urination. No, it's a back problem. Squeezing the sciatic nerves are controlling the bladder. All right. And so this is, again, it's a terrible thing, just like babies were never laid on by their mothers to get sudden death syndrome. So doctors have missed this diagnosis by a million miles. Sciatica is very easy to prevent, very easy to get rid of. Now I'm 82 years old and I don't have sciatica. I'm just 2 years younger than the Pope, right? And the sciatica, what you want to do is get rid of all the bad foods and maximize absorption. You've heard me say this a million times. No fried foods, no processed meats, no oils, no glutens, no wheat, no barley, rye, no oats, no sugar, no carbonated drinks. Even the diet drinks got to go. And then per 100 pounds of body weight, I want them to take one healthy brain and heart pack per month. If they only weigh 120, 130, 140, I want them to get another bottle of Arsenium, not Slim from the pharmacy or the grocery store. Arsenium has 5 cofactors in it, one of which is very important for the disc. So I'm going to have 3 of our selenium twice a day per 100 pounds of body weight. So if they only weigh 100 pounds, that'll be one healthy brain and heart pack and another bottle of our selenium. So they can take 3 of the selenium twice a day. I want them also to take a half a dose twice a day of everything from that healthy brain and heart pack. I want them also to get 2 bottles a month of the MSM. So they can take 3 of the MSM tablets with each meal. And they're designed to support and promote maintenance and repair of cartilage, ligaments, tendons, connective tissue. Here it comes, disc between the vertebrae, bone makes bone cell. And also, I want them to have the glucogel as our collagen. They can take 5 of those twice a day per 100 pounds of body weight. That'll be 2 bottles a month. And we have the collagen peptides, which is collagen from 4 different species: fish, poultry, sheep, and cattle. Whereas our glucogel is just, I say just, it's a gluten from 1 species, beef. Okay, so I take both just to kind of cover myself. Okay, then we also have the vitamin D3. They need that even if they live in Florida. Nobody in Florida gets naked and lays out in the sun for 3 or 4 hours a day. Everybody in Florida, when they go out in the sun, they sit in the shade. Or they put a sunblocker on so they don't get skin cancer. And so they're not really getting enough vitamin D3 from the sun. And then, of course, they're also for the sciatica. They want some comfort. Comfort. We have the CM cream and our trauma oil. Mix that together and put it on the lower back and the feet and the knees and the hips. You can put it on the neck because we have osteoporosis of the skull, which is all in my book. It's all in your head. 25 different diseases you get from osteoporosis of the skull. It squeezes the spinal cord coming out of the back of your skull because the spinal cord gets formed in the brain, comes out of the back of the skull. You get the same thing that's happening with sciatica from your waist down, happening from your skull down, okay, because the spinal cord is being squeezed by your skull. As a foramen magnum, that large hole the spinal cord comes through, gets reduced in inside diameter because the skull is now 1 inch thick instead of a 1/2 inch thick or 1/4 inch thick, what it should be normally. And people, they get trigger finger, they get tingling and numbness in the hands. They say, oh, you have carpal tunnel syndrome, we have to do surgery. You have stuff going on in your elbows, your shoulders, your neck, neck things going on. You can have things going on in your heart, atrial fibrillation, your skull is squeezing the 10th cranial nerve. You have hiccups and COPD. That's also the 10th cranial nerve being squeezed. Also gastroparesis, terrible stomach pain. Your doctor says, oh, you have gastric ulcer, you got to take your stomach out. They don't even do any tests. They just say you have so much pain in your stomach, it's got to be an ulcer. They just want to take out their stomach. But it's just the skull squeezing that 10th cranial nerve, the vagus nerve, which goes all the way from the skull all the way down into your stomach. And so all of these things, if you know this and you react properly and do your part, all of these diseases will be prevented all these diseases will be reversed without having to undergo surgery and the risk of surgery and that sort of stuff. You'll add 25 to 50 healthy years to your life. And again, I hope that somebody has the capacity to contact the Pope's doctors, which I don't have much faith in, but to contact the Pope, all his bishops, and all his people around him, the big newspapers in Rome, they need to get this information. And so this will then get to the Pope. We can save him. Pope Francis is a hard worker, but he's getting incomplete information. So he's not getting the best deal. And so I'm very, very sad because I think it's going to be a bad outcome here.
We hope that doesn't happen. I hope and pray that doesn't happen. All right, Devin, we're coming to you. We got tons of questions in our chat, and they all have all the information it looks like you need. So hopefully we can get them answered well. Devin, you ready?
Hello, Doc. I've got a question from somebody on the chat. This woman named Gracie is asking for her father. She says her dad is 73 years old. He weighs 180 pounds and is 5'7". He has high blood pressure and takes 2 types of meds for that. He also has one hand, his right hand, that is always cold and shakes a little. Why is this? How to fix it?
Okay. Does he ever complain about ringing in his ears, that sort of stuff, tinnitus or dizziness or balance problems? Does he have white hair? Does he have varicose veins?
Good question.
Looks like
Okay,
she's
yeah,
messaging back right now.
Yeah. Okay, so those are all symptoms of deficiencies, okay, that are caused by a certain nutrient that's going to be dealing with here. So at 180 pounds, he needs to get rid of all the bad foods: no fried foods, no processed meats, no oils, no glutens, no wheat, bran, oats, no sugar, no carbonated drinks. Even the diet one's got to go. I want him to have 2 healthy brain and heart packs per month. 2 healthy brain and heart packs per month, a full dose of everything twice a day. I want him to get 2 bottles a month of our MSM, so he can take 3 of those with each meal, so he can deal with everything from the osteoporosis of the skull, the hands, the back, the disc, cartilage, ligaments, tendons, connective tissue. I also want him to get 3 bottles a month of our Ultimate Daily Classic tablets, take 3 with each meal. They're going to support healthy blood pressure and healthy blood flow through the arteries in the brain, the eyes, the hands, the aorta, the heart, and so forth. And it's one of these things where many other things that he's not complaining about, but will go away. He's absorbing the nutrients. If he has gray hair or white or silver hair, the hair color is coming back after a couple of weeks. And that means he's absorbing, because the white, gray, silver hair is not an age thing. It's due to a nutritional deficiency. And I go back to Michael Jackson, who, when he was 12 years old, he had vitiligo. He started getting white spots all over him. And they thought it was a fungus. No, he just didn't have enough of that nutrient to make skin color. And then by the time he was 18 years old, his hair went snow white. So he had to wear a wig and put makeup on his skin where he had all the white spots. And then by the time he was in his 20s, he had to wear garish makeup on his face because his face skin was as white as typing paper. It was freaking everybody out. And the doctors kept telling him, well, it's a genetic thing. You just have to wear makeup and all this kind of stuff. But he died of a ruptured aortic aneurysm when he was 51, because an aortic aneurysm was caused by the same deficiency that caused vitiligo, white hair, and the varicose veins.
That's perfect. She did say that he does have gray hair, but no ringing in the ear. So you were right on point with that.
Yeah. Okay. So the hair color will come back. So watch for that. And that means he's actually getting off the gluten and supplementing. That means that he's absorbing the nutrients, which helps repair all the tissues. But the hair color is kind of a red warning light. The skin, is a red warning light. The veins in your legs are a red warning light. When they're bad, it's telling you got all these problems. But as they're getting better, that's telling you you've hit the nail on the head and you're right, in the zone, and you're helping the body have what it needs to repair itself.
Awesome stuff. All right, Devin, we're going to pass it on to you for the next one.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Doc. Next question comes from the same woman. Instead of it being her father, Gracie shares that her husband is 53 years old. is 5'11" and weighs 220 pounds. He has very high blood pressure, over 150 over 100, and has a high pressure job. What should he take to fix his blood pressure issue?
He needs to do the same thing her dad does. No fried foods, no processed meats, no oils, no glutens, no wheat, bran, rhinos, no sugar, no carbonated drinks. He needs to have 2 of the healthy brain and heart packs per month, a full dose of everything twice a day. He needs MSM, 3 of those 3 times a day. It'll be 2 bottles a month to rebuild the cartilage, ligaments, tendons, connective tissue, disc between vertebrae, bone rakes, bone itself. He also needs 3 bottles a month of the Ultimate Daily Classic tablets. So we can take 3 of those. Don't go off the medicine as soon as he gets on our stuff, but take his blood pressure every day. And as the blood pressure starts dropping, they can slowly reduce the medication based on the numbers. But both hubby and dad will get rid of their high blood pressure and wean off the medication based on the numbers by taking this program. But they got to be drop dead gluten free so they can absorb the nutrition. They cannot be eating gluten. They have to live like an Asian: rice, millet, buckwheat, corn, beans, squash, that sort of stuff.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Doc. And another question comes from a gentleman. His daughter is 3 years old and is allergic to cashews and kiwi.
It's easy. Don't eat cashews and kiwi.
She has severe fever and eczema. She is on Telfast multiple times a day. Telefast, I think it might be telemedicine, but has the severe fever and eczema.
Yeah. Do we know how much she weighs?
Not too sure.
Okay. Well, she's you say she's 3 years old, so she might weigh anywhere around 25 to 30 pounds, kind of thing, somewhere in there, give or take a little bit. So she needs to get rid of all the bad stuff. No fried foods, no processed meats, no oils, no glutens, no wheat, bran, rhinos, no sugar. She cannot have Wheaties for breakfast. She cannot have oatmeal for breakfast. There's no such thing as gluten-free oatmeal. She needs to have rice for breakfast. She can have baked sweet potatoes for breakfast. That's what I have, baked sweet potatoes or rice. She can do the same thing. She can have fish. I like the smoked red sockeye salmon from Alaska. It's freshwater wild salmon. And I also have lamb chops every Saturday night. I have steak 3 nights a week. I have gluten-free pizza, which this kid can have. A gluten-free pizza. The gluten-free crust, I like the cauliflower and the rice flour crust. There's 4 different types of cheeses and 4 or 5 different, 5, 6 different vegetables on there. Okay. I also like to put a hamburger patty or 2 on each half of the gluten-free pizza. So I'll have 3 nights a week. I'll have the gluten-free pizza with all that. And then 2 mornings for breakfast, I'll have the gluten-free pizza with the hamburgers on there. And so you don't have to, and I have a glass of red wine with dinner every night, and I have gluten-free ice cream at dinner time. And so it's not like you're giving up any life. You just have to be very, very selective on your sources and what farm you're eating foods in. And so if you want to drink beer, you want to get the Australian beer, the New Zealand beer made from rice, or Japanese beer or Chinese beer made from rice. There may be, I don't know, I had to look it up. There may be one beer brewery in America that has a rice beer. Do not drink beers made from wheat, barley, rye, and oats. Don't drink whiskey, wheat, barley, rye, and oats. You can have wine because they're made from grapes and berries. There's no gluten in grapes and berries. And if you're getting the ice cream, on the front label, it should have a big gluten-free symbol on it and the words gluten-free underneath the gluten-free symbol. And that way, you're getting gluten-free ice cream. And I use the kids sprinkles on my ice cream. It's these little sprinkles. They taste good. They taste like watermelon. And they also have, a dozen vitamins and minerals in there. And I put that on my ice cream. And I have all my 90 essential nutrients, and I have my liquids, which I put in our Icelandic water, which has the minerals from the volcanoes of Iceland and stuff. And so that's why, I'm 82 years old. I've been gluten-free for 74 years, been taking the 90 for 74 years, been avoiding all the bad stuff. I mean, I came from Missouri, where they ate as much fried food as people in Alabama and Georgia. Okay, but I didn't eat those fried foods. I didn't eat the French fries. I didn't eat that kind of stuff. I might go there and have a hamburger, but I wouldn't eat the bun. I would just eat the lettuce and tomato and cheese that they put on the hamburger and throw the bun away, kind of thing. And so as a result, I don't have any of these pre-existing conditions. I don't have any sciatica. I don't have any high blood pressure. I don't have any diabetes. I don't have any arthritis. I don't have any thyroid issues. I don't have any COPD. I don't have any lung issues of any kind. I don't have any gastroparesis. I don't have any prostate problems. I don't have any of those kind of problems at all. I take the 90 essential nutrients plus the Prostafex and 3 eggs twice a day, and I stay away from statin drugs because 95% of testosterone is cholesterol. You do not want to be on statin drugs. Cholesterol is not the things that blocks your arteries. It's salad dressings and fried foods are what blocks your arteries, not cholesterol. Back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Wallach. So what should the 3-year-old take?
Kids toddy, Cal toddy, and the dosage is on the label. Kids toddy, Cal toddy, EFAs, and the kids sprinkles. And so that's what the 3-year-old should be taking. I think I covered it all for them. Okay. And it's one of those things where this is unimpeachable. We've been doing this for kids for a long time. We've been doing this for kids for a long time. Okay. And it's yeah, here we go. Kids toddy, Cal toddy, kids sprinkles, rebound or sports drink, probably a little bit too much for a 3-year-old or sports drink, but the kids sprinkles, you can put in some applesauce, you can put it on the gluten-free ice cream and stuff like that. It tastes like watermelon, and there's, mixed color sprinkles and all that kind of stuff. And so kids don't have to think like they're being tortured and made to suffer because of what's going on, because they're going to be getting pizza, they're going to be getting ice cream, they're going to be getting fruit, they're going to be getting good stuff for breakfast. They're going to get wild rice for breakfast like I do, or white rice or yellow rice, just not fried rice. They cannot have French fries for breakfast. They can have baked white potatoes. They can have baked sweet potatoes for breakfast. Okay, but they cannot have waffles, pancakes. But I do have a cookbook coming out. Okay, it should be available next week, actually. So this cookbook is called Dr. Wallach's Cooking Without the Bad Foods. Dr. Wallach's Cooking Without the Bad Foods. Okay, that's available. It's 300 pages, goes into 50 years of recipes that I've accumulated. And I have a team of chefs in Canada who have put this together for me and tested it and made sure that all my recipes are gluten-free, and they've been using it on people up in Canada. And so these books will be available. I mean, you can order now. We won't be able to ship for a week, but you can start ordering now. Okay, Dr. Wallach's Cooking Without the Bad Foods. Dr. Wallach's Recipes Without the Bad Foods. It's amazing.
That is so awesome. We're definitely gonna have to get that. I have another question from the chat. I'll go ahead and take it. How long should one take DE? I'm gonna ask what DE is.
DE.
I feel like I shouldn't have asked yet because I don't know what that is. I do have a follow-up on the allergies though. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think I've heard you say that increasing your salt intake can actually help reduce food allergies. Is that correct, or am I misremembering?
No, that's correct. Salt is an essential nutrient, sodium and chloride, required by the chief cells of your stomach to make stomach acid. And also the sodium and chloride are needed by every cell in the body for all these cofactors and all these different chemical reactions within the cells. We have the pink Himalayan salt with 84 minerals in it. We have the pink Himalayan salt with ground up black pepper in it. And I use 2 teaspoons a day. I use a teaspoon on my rice and my, let's see here. I use it on my rice in the morning for breakfast. I use it on my eggs for breakfast. I have 3 poached eggs for breakfast. I'll put the pink Himalayan salt on the 3 eggs and on my rice. At evening time, I use it on the whatever meat I'm eating, and also on my potatoes, my baked white potato or my baked sweet potato. I put the pink Himalayan salt with the black ground pepper in it. And again, I don't have any belching, burping, or bloating. I don't have any of that kind of stuff. I don't have any gastric ulcers. I'm certainly not, I don't have any heart issues or high blood pressure. And that's because salt has nothing to do with high blood pressure. That whole thing about salt and high blood pressure came out over 100 years ago when doctors were realizing that when people had congestive heart failure, they had edema in the legs, had edema fluid collecting in their legs. And when people would use salt, that edema would get worse. So he said, that salt is bad for your heart. And so they've been going at that for over 100 years incorrectly. Now, if you have edema, salt in excess of what your body will use will actually increase the edema. But salt is a required nutrient. If you don't have edema, you want to be using the salt. I use a teaspoon twice a day because I only eat 2 meals a day. Sometimes like today, because I had 4 Zooms today, I had 3 of these Baby Bell cheeses, okay, and a Rebound sports drink. And so I did have some extra of our salt. And it's one of those things where you have to appreciate that salt is essential nutrients for every cell, every tissue, every organ in the body. Do not cause yourself to have bad digestion and bloating and burping, because what that happens, that means your pH in your stomach is neutral or alkaline, which some people go for. They want it to be alkaline incorrectly, but they think that's good, and they're alkaline, and bacteria then ferment the food in your stomach and create gas. When your pH in your stomach is acid, bacteria can't grow there, and you don't have any belching, burping, and bloating. So we have to blame doctors on a lot of this misinformation.
That's really, really good to know about the gassing, belching, that kind of stuff as well, dealing with the alkaline stuff, because that's very popular. A lot of people buy alkaline water and drink alkaline water a lot. So that's good to know.
It's caused by salt deficiency.
Awesome, awesome information. So I found out what DE is. It's diatomaceous earth.
Diatomaceous earth. Okay, diatomaceous earth. Diatomaceous earth is a ground up soil. Sometimes it'll have rocks in it and stuff like that. And diatomaceous earth can be a supplement for fertilizer. It's not something that human beings want to eat, but you can use it as a fertilizer. We have our Bloomin' Minerals. Our Bloomin' Minerals has 84 minerals in it, and it's from plants, from sea plants out from underneath the let's see here, the reefs that died over the years and became limestone. And say these were the plants under the reefs that died, and so we got the minerals, okay, which we call the BM, okay, not bowel movement, but Bloomin' Minerals has 84 minerals in it. And those minerals will get into the plants that you're growing in your garden. And so if you're going to have a little garden for carrots and tomatoes and beans and peppers and squash and things like that, and okra and so on, you definitely want to use our Bloomin' Minerals as a fertilizer, not just the NPK stuff that they use in big farms, because you're only going to get NPK. You'll be missing 87 nutrients.
That makes a lot of sense. For someone that is trying to take it, I know that there's food grade. I'm looking it up. There's food grade diatomaceous earth, and it's supposed to be a form of silica. So what would you recommend instead of that?
Well, silica, remember, is ground up rocks. Okay, silica is a very, what should I say, inert. There are not many tissues in your body that use silica. Okay, turtles use it for their shells, and birds use it for feathers and stuff like that. But we don't have much of a use for silica. There's a little bit, maybe a 0.001% in bones and things like that, but it's not a big deal. There's a little bit of silica in our Bloomin' Minerals. But if you want to use it as a fertilizer to keep the ground from being impacted and mix it in, about say 1% of our Bloomin' Minerals, you could add some diatomaceous earth, that's fine. But don't use that as a complete nutrient, because your plants cannot get all the minerals out of that silica because they're attached to that silica. Okay, it's like trying to eat concrete and think you're getting minerals for your body.
That makes a ton of sense. Thank you so much, Dr. Wallach. We're right at time. We're going to let you go, but we love you and we appreciate you. And for anyone that's watching, this recording will be up tomorrow, and we can go back, answer any questions, and get you guys rock and rolling on any products, questions, or one-on-one coaching that you may need moving forward. So have a great night, and we'll see you next time.
Well, God bless. Thank you very much. And just remember, Stay away from all the bad foods, take your 90 essential nutrients, and tell everybody about it so we can save as many as possible. God bless.
Good night.
Yeah.